Welcome back to FlyWize, your source for travel truths the airlines wish you'd never discover. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the aviation industry. The things you're about to hear might completely change how you feel the next time you board a plane. Because behind every smile from the cabin crew, every safety announcement, and every little rule, there's a reason they don't want you to ask questions. Let's start with one of the biggest secrets: oxygen masks. Those yellow cups that drop from the ceiling when the cabin loses pressure look like they'll save your life, right? What most passengers don't know is that those masks only provide about 12 to 15 minutes of oxygen. That's not much time. But here's the catch. That's usually all the time needed for the pilot to drop the aircraft to a safe altitude. Still, the idea that your oxygen supply could run out while you're waiting for the plane to level out is something airlines prefer not to emphasize. It's meant to keep passengers calm, not alarmed. Next, let's talk about coffee and tea on planes. Flight attendants will never tell you this directly, but the water used to brew your coffee or tea doesn't come from bottled sources. It's pumped from the plane's onboard water tanks that are rarely cleaned as often as they should be. In several independent studies, bacteria levels found in these tanks exceeded safe limits for drinking water. That's why many flight attendants avoid drinking coffee or tea entirely when they're working. So, next time you're offered a cup, maybe just stick to bottled water. Here's another uncomfortable truth. Your tray table is one of the dirtiest surfaces on the entire plane. Think of it this way. Hundreds of passengers use it each week, and not all of them use it just for food. Some parents change their babies' diapers there. Some passengers rest their feet, or use it to store personal items that have been on the floor. Cabin cleaning crews work fast. Sometimes they only have 10 minutes between flights, which means they don't have time to sanitize every table. So before you unfold that tray, maybe give it a good wipe down yourself. Now, about the air you're breathing. It's not as fresh as you think. Most modern aircraft use a system called bleed air, which takes compressed air directly from the jet engines and pumps it into the cabin. It's filtered, yes, but not in the way you'd expect. This system can sometimes circulate trace amounts of engine oil vapor or hydraulic fluid. There have been documented cases where flight crews experienced something called aerotoxic syndrome after exposure to contaminated air. Passengers rarely notice it, but that dry, heavy feeling you get mid-flight isn't just low humidity. It's the recycled air that's been used and reused by hundreds of people over multiple flights. Let's move on to something that happens before you even board: overbooking. Airlines deliberately sell more tickets than there are seats on the plane, expecting that a few passengers won't show up. When everyone does show up, someone gets bumped. They'll offer travel vouchers, meal coupons, maybe a free hotel room. But here's the real reason they do it. Statistically, it's cheaper for airlines to deal with a few angry passengers than to risk flying with empty seats. It's all part of a calculated profit strategy, not an accident. Have you ever noticed how airlines dim the cabin lights during takeoff and landing? It's not to help you relax. It's to prepare your eyes for an emergency. If something goes wrong, your eyes are already adjusted to low light, helping you see exit signs more quickly. But of course, they'll never tell you that. It's one of those safety measures that sound harmless until you realize what it's actually preparing you for. Here's one that might surprise you. Flight attendants aren't just there to serve drinks. Their main job is safety. Before every flight, they memorize passenger locations, identify anyone who looks suspicious or physically strong, and plan who might help or hinder in an emergency. They're trained to assess body language, listen for aggressive tones, and spot potential threats within seconds of boarding. So while you're worried about your carry-on fitting in the overhead bin, they're quietly profiling everyone on the plane, including you. Now, about turbulence, it's far less dangerous than it feels. But what airlines don't mention is how often pilots rely on passenger discomfort to enforce seatbelt compliance. Moderate turbulence might not endanger the aircraft, but it's enough to make people nervous and keep them seated. The truth is, turbulence is mostly about control and safety compliance. Pilots use it as a behavioral tool, not just a flight condition. When one pilot leaves the cockpit, for example, to use the restroom, a flight attendant has to step inside and stay there until the pilot returns. It's a strict security rule enforced after September 11th. But did you know that pilots are also served different meals from one another? That's to prevent food poisoning from affecting both at the same time. One might have chicken, the other beef, and they can't share. Let's talk about something passengers almost never realize: the the real weight of your luggage isn't always what matters. Airlines use something called a payload balance system, which factors in not just the weight of bags, but where they're placed in the plane. If too many heavy bags are in the rear, it affects fuel efficiency and stability. So when gate agents suddenly tell you your carry-on must be checked, it's not always about space. Sometimes it's about aircraft balance, but they'll never admit that because it sounds like a design flaw. Ever noticed how you sometimes wait forever on the tarmac before taking off? You might think it's air traffic control delays, but often it's about fuel efficiency. Planes burn more fuel idling in the air than on the ground. So airlines sometimes choose to hold departures until a landing slot is clear. It's cheaper for them, even if it wastes your time. Speaking of time, that estimated arrival time? It's not always accurate. Many airlines build in schedule padding, adding extra time to flights so they appear to arrive early or on time. It's psychological. If you think your flight landed ahead of schedule, you feel like the airline performed well. But in reality, they just gave themselves a buffer to avoid looking delayed. And here's one you won't hear during the pre-flight briefing. The life vest under your seat? It's not always there. In some random inspections, officials have found missing or damaged vests, often taken as souvenirs by passengers. Airlines check them periodically, but not before every flight. So if you really want to be sure, maybe take a quick peek under your seat next time. Food on board is another mystery. Most of it isn't cooked fresh on the plane. It's prepared up to 72 hours in advance, flash frozen, and reheated. Because of altitude and cabin pressure, your taste buds don't work the same way. That's why meals often taste bland or overly salty. Airlines exploit that by loading meals with extra sodium and artificial flavoring to compensate. That freshly baked bread, usually reheated from frozen dough prepared days ago. Now let's talk about seats. Airlines have been quietly shrinking seat width and pitch over the last decade to fit more passengers per cabin. A few inches may not sound like much, but on long flights, it can increase fatigue, leg cramps, and circulation problems. Yet, they continue to call it optimized space utilization. What that really means is, we found a way to fit more people and charge the same or higher ticket prices. Here's a psychological trick airlines use every day. Dynamic pricing. The price you see when you search for a ticket isn't static. Airlines use cookies to track your search patterns, increasing the price slightly if you check back multiple times. It creates a sense of urgency, tricking you into buying faster before it goes up again. Next time, clear your cookies or search in incognito mode. You might just save money. Speaking of money, have you ever wondered why checked luggage fees are so high? It's because baggage handling is a major revenue stream. Airlines discovered that by separating luggage from ticket pricing, they could advertise lower fares while earning billions annually in baggage fees. What used to be free is now one of their most profitable services. And here's a little-known fact about your pilot's rest schedule. On long-haul flights, pilots often sleep mid-flight. There's usually a small hidden rest area above or below the cabin, complete with bunks. While one pilot sleeps, the other flies. It's standard practice and perfectly safe, but it's not something you'll ever hear mentioned over the intercom. Now, about the safety demonstrations. Ever notice how repetitive they are? That's on purpose. The goal isn't just to inform, it's to condition. Repetition increases compliance. The more often you hear "fasten your seatbelt," the more likely you are to obey instantly during an emergency. It's subtle psychological programming, wrapped in politeness. Let's wrap this up with something many travelers never think about: your luggage tag barcode. That little code not only tracks your bag, but also logs your entire flight path in airline databases. It can even reveal where you've flown before. If you ever see random airport codes printed on your tag that aren't part of your route, that's data tracking, not a mistake. So, what can you take away from all this? The airline industry runs on efficiency, psychology, and profit, not transparency. Most of these secrets aren't about safety. They're about control and image. The next time you board a flight, remember, what you see and what's really happening are often two very different things. Thanks for watching FlyWize, where we reveal what others won't. If you learned something new today, give this video a like, share it with someone who travels, and make sure you're subscribed. Because next time, we're exposing the hidden tricks airlines use to make you spend more before you even board. Until then, travel smart, stay aware, and always fly wise.